It was a busy Friday evening at the Grand Horizon Hotel, one of the most luxurious establishments in the city. The lobby buzzed with the chatter of well-dressed guests, the clinking of glasses from the bar, and the soft hum of the grand piano in the corner. Behind the polished marble reception desk, a young woman in her late 20s was juggling multiple tasks. Her name was Clara, and she had been working as a receptionist for just over a year. Tonight, she was alone at the desk, covering for a colleague who had called in sick. Her shift had already been long, and her feet ached from standing for hours. Clara was typing furiously on the computer, trying to process a last-minute booking for a VIP guest, when a man walked up to the desk. He was dressed casually, a plain black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. His hair was slightly messy, and he looked tired, almost like he had just come from a long flight. Clara barely glanced at him as she continued typing, her frustration mounting with every second. "Excuse me," the man said politely, his voice calm but firm. "I'd like to book a room for the night." Clara sighed audibly, not bothering to hide her irritation. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're fully booked tonight. You'll have to try somewhere else." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by her dismissive tone. "Are you sure? I was told there might be some availability." Clara finally looked up, her patience wearing thin. "I'm sure, sir. We're a 5-star hotel, and we don't usually accommodate walk-ins without reservations. You should have planned ahead." The man's expression shifted from surprise to mild amusement. He opened his mouth to say something, but Clara cut him off. "If you'll excuse me, I have other guests to attend to." She turned her attention back to the computer, effectively ending the conversation. The man stood there for a moment, as if deciding whether to push the issue, but then he simply nodded and walked away. Clara didn't think much of it. To her, he was just another entitled tourist trying to get a room at a fully booked hotel. What she didn't know was that the man she had just dismissed was none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and owner of the Grand Horizon Hotel. Moments later, the hotel manager, a tall man in his 50s with a stern expression, rushed over to the reception desk. His face was pale, and he looked like he had just seen a ghost. "Clara," he said in a low, urgent voice, "do you have any idea who that man was?" Clara frowned, confused. "What man?" "The man you just turned away." "That was Elon Musk." Clara's heart dropped to her stomach. Her mind raced as she tried to process the manager's words. "Elon Musk? The Elon Musk? The owner of the hotel?" She felt a wave of panic wash over her. I didn't know," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "He didn't look like. I mean, he was so casual." The manager pinched the bridge of his nose, clearly stressed. "This is a disaster. Do you realize what you've done? He could fire all of us over this." Clara's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the desk. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear and regret. How could she have been so careless? She had just humiliated one of the most powerful men in the world, and now her job, and possibly her entire future, was on the line. As the manager stormed off to try and salvage the situation, Clara sank into her chair, her mind racing with questions. What would happen next? Would she lose her job? Would Musk demand an apology? Or would this be the end of her career altogether? The audience is left on the edge of their seats, wondering how this simple mistake will unfold and what consequences Clara will face. Clara sat in the dimly lit employee break room, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The manager had sent her here to cool off while he dealt with the fallout from her mistake. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one more anxious than the last. She couldn't stop replaying the moment in her head, the dismissive tone she had used, the way she had barely even looked at him. How could she have been so careless? But Clara's life wasn't just about this one mistake. It was a constant juggling act, a never-ending battle to keep her head above water. She was a single mother to a 6-year-old boy named Jake, and every decision she made revolved around him. Her days started early, often before the sun was up, and ended late, long after Jake was asleep. She worked 2 jobs, one as a receptionist at the Grand Horizon Hotel and another as a part-time cashier at a grocery store, just to make ends meet. Money was always tight. Rent, groceries, daycare, medical bills, it felt like every time she managed to save a little, something unexpected would come up and wipe it all out. Jake had been sick recently, and the doctor's visits had drained what little savings she had. Clara had been working overtime at the hotel, hoping to earn enough to cover the next round of bills, but the stress was taking its toll. She was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, and it showed in her work. Her colleagues at the hotel often joked that she was a machine, always working, always pushing herself to the limit. But Clara didn't feel like a machine. She felt like she was one misstep away from falling apart. Tonight's incident with Elon Musk was just the latest in a string of bad luck. Clara had always prided herself on being professional and courteous, even in the face of difficult guests. But tonight, she had let her frustration get the better of her. She had been so focused on the VIP booking and so overwhelmed by the chaos of the evening that she hadn't even stopped to consider who the casually dressed man might be. As she sat in the break room, Clara's thoughts turned to Jake. He was her reason for everything, her motivation to keep going, no matter how hard things got. She thought about his smile, his laughter, the way he hugged her tightly every night before bed. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. Not when Jake was counting on her. The door to the break room creaked open, and Clara looked up to see her coworker, Maria, peeking in. Maria was one of the few people at the hotel who knew about Clara's struggles. She had covered for Clara a few times when Jake was sick, and she had always been kind and understanding. "Hey," Maria said softly, closing the door behind her. "Are you okay?" Clara shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I messed up, Maria. I really messed up." Maria sat down beside her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be okay. Everyone makes mistakes." "Not like this," Clara said, her voice trembling. "I was rude to Elon Musk, the owner of the hotel. Do you know what that means? I could lose my job. What am I going to do if that happens? How am I going to take care of Jake?" Maria sighed, her expression sympathetic. "I don't know, Clara. But you're strong. You've been through worse, and you've always found a way to keep going. You'll figure this out." Clara wanted to believe her, but the fear was overwhelming. She thought about all the times she had struggled, all the times she had fought to keep her life together. She had always managed to pull through, but this felt different. This felt like the kind of mistake that could change everything. As the minutes ticked by, Clara's mind raced with possibilities. Would Elon Musk demand an apology? Would he fire her on the spot? Or would he simply let it go, chalking it up to a bad day? She had no way of knowing, and the uncertainty was torture. Finally, the door opened again, and the manager stepped in. His expression was unreadable, but Clara could tell from the way he avoided her gaze that the news wasn't good. "Clara," he said, his voice heavy with regret, "I need you to come with me. Mr. Musk wants to speak with you." Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she stood up, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. She glanced at Maria, who gave her a reassuring nod, and then followed the manager out of the break room. The walk to the executive office felt like the longest of her life. Every step brought her closer to a moment she had been dreading, a moment that could change everything. As she approached the door, Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Whatever happened next, she knew she had to face it head-on. For Jake. For herself. Elon Musk sat in the plush leather chair of the hotel's executive office, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city skyline. The lights of the bustling metropolis twinkled like stars, but his mind was far from the view. He had just come from a high-stakes meeting with investors, and the weight of the day's decision still hung heavily on his shoulders. The meeting had been grueling. There were disagreements, tough questions, and moments where he had to defend his vision with every ounce of conviction he had. By the end of it, he was exhausted, both mentally and physically. All he wanted was a quiet place to rest, to gather his thoughts before the next round of challenges. That's why he had decided to visit the Grand Horizon Hotel. It was one of his lesser-known acquisitions, a luxurious property he had purchased a few years ago as part of a larger investment portfolio. He rarely visited in person, preferring to let the management team handle the day-to-day operations. But tonight, he needed a break from the chaos of his life, and the hotel seemed like the perfect place to unwind. He had arrived incognito, dressed in his usual casual attire, a simple black t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. He didn't want any special treatment or fanfare. He just wanted to blend in, to experience the hotel as any other guest would. It was something he did occasionally, a way to stay grounded and connected to the real world. But his plan had backfired. The receptionist at the front desk had been dismissive, almost rude, and it had caught him off guard. He wasn't used to being treated that way, especially not at one of his own properties. For a moment, he had considered revealing his identity, but something had stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the look of exhaustion on the receptionist's face. Whatever it was, he had decided to let it play out. Now, sitting in the executive office, he couldn't stop thinking about the interaction. The receptionist had clearly been stressed, overwhelmed by the demands of her job. He had seen it in her eyes, in the way she had barely looked at him. It reminded him of his own early days, when he was just starting out and struggling to make ends meet. Elon leaned back in his chair, his mind wandering to the past. He thought about the long nights he had spent working on his first ventures, the sacrifices he had made, the people who had doubted him. He remembered what it felt like to be dismissed, to be told he wasn't good enough. Those memories were still vivid, even after all these years. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was getting late, and he knew he should be heading to his room. But something about the receptionist's reaction had struck a chord with him. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, that her behavior wasn't just about him. The door to the office opened, and the hotel manager stepped in, looking nervous. "Mr. Musk, I brought the receptionist. Her name is Clara." Elon nodded, his expression unreadable. "Send her in." The manager stepped aside, and Clara walked into the room. She looked pale, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her eyes were downcast, and she seemed to be bracing herself for whatever was coming next. Elon studied her for a moment, taking in her appearance. She was young, probably in her late 20s, with dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. Her uniform was neat but slightly wrinkled, as if she had been on her feet all day. She looked like someone who was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Clara," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Do you know why you're here?" She nodded, still avoiding his gaze. "Yes, sir. I made a mistake. I didn't realize who you were, and I was rude. I'm so sorry." Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Why were you rude?" Clara hesitated, her hands trembling. "I was stressed. It's been a long day, and I was trying to handle too many things at once. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I wasn't thinking." Elon watched her closely, his expression thoughtful. He could see the fear in her eyes, the desperation in her voice. It was clear that she was terrified of losing her job, of what it would mean for her life. "Tell me about yourself," he said suddenly, catching her off guard. Clara looked up, confusion written all over her face. "What?" "Tell me about your life," he repeated. "What's your story?" For a moment, Clara didn't know what to say. She had been prepared for anger, for reprimands, but not for this. Slowly, hesitantly, she began to speak. She told him about her son, about her struggles as a single mother, about the constant juggling act of work and parenthood. She talked about her dreams of a better life, of the sacrifices she had made to provide for her child. Elon listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had expected an apology, maybe an explanation, but he hadn't expected this. "Thank you for being honest," he said finally. "I'll let you know my decision soon." Clara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew that whatever happened next would change her life forever. Clara stepped out of the executive office, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. The conversation with Elon Musk had been surreal, and she still couldn't quite process what had just happened. He hadn't yelled at her or fired her on the spot, which was a relief, but his calm demeanor and probing questions had left her feeling even more unsettled. She walked back to the employee break room in a daze, her mind racing with possibilities. What did he mean by, "I'll let you know my decision soon"? Was he going to fire her after all? Or was there a chance he might let her keep her job? She had no way of knowing, and the uncertainty was torture. When she reached the break room, Maria was waiting for her, her face filled with concern. "What happened?" Maria asked immediately, pulling Clara into a chair. "What did he say?" Clara shook her head, still trying to make sense of it all. "I don't know. He asked me about my life, about why I was rude. I told him everything, about Jake, about working 2 jobs, about how stressed I'd been. He just listened and then said he'd let me know his decision soon." Maria frowned, her brow furrowed in thought. "That's weird. Why would he care about your life? He's a billionaire. He probably just wanted to hear your sob story before firing you." Clara's heart sank at the words. Maria was probably right. Why would someone like Elon Musk care about her struggles? He was one of the most powerful men in the world, and she was just a receptionist who had made a stupid mistake. "I don't know what to do," Clara said, her voice trembling. "If I lose this job, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. Jake's daycare alone costs more than I make at the grocery store." Maria squeezed her hand, her expression sympathetic. "You'll figure it out. You always do. But for now, try not to panic. Maybe he'll surprise you." Clara wanted to believe her, but the fear was overwhelming. She thought about Jake, about how much he depended on her. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. Not ever. As the minutes ticked by, Clara's anxiety grew. She kept replaying the conversation in her head, trying to decipher Musk's words, his tone, his expression. Had there been a hint of compassion in his eyes? Or had she just imagined it? Finally, the door to the break room opened, and the manager stepped in. His expression was unreadable, but Clara could tell from the way he avoided her gaze that the news wasn't good. "Clara," he said, his voice heavy with regret, "Mr. Musk has made his decision. He wants to see you again." Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she stood up, her legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. She glanced at Maria, who gave her a reassuring nod, and then followed the manager out of the break room. The walk to the executive office felt like the longest of her life. Every step brought her closer to a moment she had been dreading, a moment that could change everything. When she reached the office, the manager knocked on the door and then stepped aside, gesturing for her to go in. Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and then pushed the door open. Elon Musk was sitting at the desk, his expression calm but thoughtful. He looked up as she entered, his eyes meeting hers. "Clara," he said, his voice steady, "thank you for coming back. I've thought about what you told me, and I've made my decision." Clara's heart raced as she waited for him to continue. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to either fall or be pulled back to safety. "I'm not going to fire you," he said finally, his words sending a wave of relief through her. "But I'm not going to let this go, either. What happened tonight was unacceptable, and it's clear that you've been under a lot of pressure. That's not an excuse, but it's something that needs to be addressed." Clara nodded, her hands trembling. "Thank you, sir. I don't know what to say." Elon leaned forward, his expression serious. "I want to give you a chance to prove yourself. Starting tomorrow, you'll be promoted to a new role, guest relations manager. It's a step up from your current position, and it comes with a higher salary. But it also comes with higher expectations. I want you to use this opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become the best version of yourself. Can you do that? Clara's eyes widened in shock. A promotion? After everything that had happened? It felt like a dream, too good to be true. Yes, she said immediately, her voice filled with determination. I won't let you down, sir. I promise. Elon nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Good. I'll be watching your progress closely. But remember, this isn't just about the job. It's about you, your life, your future, your son. Use this opportunity to build the life you've always wanted. Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes as she nodded. Thank you, Mr. Musk. I don't know how to thank you. Elon stood up, his expression softening. You don't have to thank me. Just do your best. That's all anyone can ask for. As Clara left the office, her mind was spinning. She had been given a second chance, an opportunity to turn her life around. But she knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and moments of doubt. For now, though, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were finally starting to look up. Clara's promotion to guest relations manager was announced the next morning, and it sent shockwaves through the hotel staff. Whispers filled the hallways as her colleagues tried to make sense of what had happened. How had a receptionist who had embarrassed the owner of the hotel been promoted instead of fired? The rumors ranged from the plausible to the absurd, but Clara didn't have time to address any of them. She was too busy trying to adjust to her new role. The promotion came with a higher salary, which was a huge relief, but it also came with a steep learning curve. Clara was now responsible for overseeing guest satisfaction, handling complaints, and ensuring that every visitor had a memorable experience. It was a big step up from her previous role, and the pressure was intense. At first, Clara was determined to prove herself. She arrived early, stayed late, and poured her heart into every task. But the stress of the new position, combined with her responsibilities as a single mother, quickly began to take its toll. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Clara returned home to find Jake waiting for her at the kitchen table. His face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept well. Mom, he said quietly, I don't feel good. Clara's heart sank as she placed a hand on his forehead. He was burning up. She quickly grabbed the thermometer and checked his temperature, 102 degrees. Oh, sweetie, she said, her voice filled with worry. Let's get you to bed. She spent the night tending to Jake, alternating between cold compresses and doses of children's fever reducer. By morning, his fever had gone down slightly, but he was still too sick to go to daycare. Clara knew she couldn't call in sick, not on her third day in the new role. She called Maria, hoping her friend could cover for her, but Maria was already swamped with her own workload. Desperate, Clara decided to bring Jake to work with her, hoping she could keep him quiet and out of sight in the staff lounge. It was a risky move, but she didn't have a choice. The day started off smoothly enough. Jake sat quietly in the lounge, coloring in a book Clara had brought for him. But as the hours passed, he grew restless and began to wander. Clara was in the middle of handling a guest complaint when she heard a loud crash from the lobby. Her heart dropped as she rushed over to find Jake standing next to a shattered vase, his face pale with fear. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I didn't mean to. The guest whose complaint Clara had been handling, a wealthy businessman in town for a conference, was furious. What is this? He demanded, gesturing to Jake and the broken vase. Is this a hotel or a daycare? I demand to speak to the manager. Clara's stomach churned as she tried to calm the guest down, but the damage was done. The incident was reported to the hotel manager, who called her into his office later that afternoon. Clara, he said, his tone stern, I understand that you're in a difficult position, but bringing your child to work is against hotel policy. This kind of behavior is unacceptable, especially in your new role. Clara nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. My son was sick, and I couldn't find anyone to watch him. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. The manager sighed, his expression softening slightly. I sympathize with your situation, but this can't happen again. If it does, I'll have no choice but to take disciplinary action. Clara left the office feeling defeated. She had been given a second chance, and now it felt like she was on the verge of throwing it all away. That evening, as she tucked Jake into bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the day's events. She had worked so hard to get where she was, but it felt like the universe was conspiring against her. Mom, Jake said softly, his eyes wide with guilt, did I get you in trouble today? Clara forced a smile and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. No, sweetie. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to figure things out. Jake nodded, his expression serious. I'm sorry, Mom. I'll be better tomorrow. Clara's heart ached at his words. He was just a child, and yet he carried so much guilt for things that weren't his fault. As she sat by his bedside, watching him drift off to sleep, Clara felt a wave of determination wash over her. She couldn't give up. Not now. Not when Jake was counting on her. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that her second chance was slipping through her fingers. The next few days were a blur for Clara. She threw herself into her work, determined to prove that she deserved the promotion. But the stress of balancing her new responsibilities with Jake's needs was overwhelming. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and sheer willpower, but it was only a matter of time before something gave. That moment came on a busy Friday evening. The hotel was hosting a high-profile gala, and Clara was in charge of ensuring everything ran smoothly. The event was a success, but by the end of the night, she was utterly exhausted. As she was finalizing the last details with the catering team, she felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. Before she could steady herself, her vision blurred, and she collapsed to the floor. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on a couch in the executive office, a glass of water on the table beside her. Elon Musk was sitting across from her, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. You fainted, he said simply, his voice calm but firm. The staff brought you here. How are you feeling? Clara sat up slowly, her head still spinning. I'm okay. Just tired, I guess. Elon studied her for a moment, his gaze piercing. Tired doesn't usually make someone collapse. What's really going on, Clara? For a moment, Clara considered brushing off his question, but something about his tone made her pause. He wasn't asking as her boss, he was asking as someone who genuinely wanted to understand. She took a deep breath and began to explain. She told him about Jake's illness, about the incident with the vase, about the constant juggling act of work and motherhood. She talked about the guilt she felt every time she had to leave Jake with a babysitter, the fear of failing him, the pressure of trying to prove herself in her new role. Elon listened in silence, his expression thoughtful. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. You're carrying a lot on your shoulders, he said finally. But you don't have to do it alone. Clara frowned, confused. What do you mean? Elon stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the city skyline. I've been where you are, overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to do it all on my own. It's not sustainable. You need help, Clara. And I'm going to make sure you get it. Clara's eyes widened in shock. You don't have to do that. I'll figure it out. I always do. Elon turned to face her, his expression serious. This isn't about obligation. It's about recognizing potential. You've got what it takes to succeed, but you need support. And I'm in a position to provide that. He walked back to his desk and pulled out a business card, scribbling something on the back. This is the contact information for a childcare service I trust. They'll take care of Jake whenever you need them, no questions asked. And I'm assigning you a mentor, someone who can help you navigate your new role and manage your workload. Clara stared at the card, her mind racing. She wanted to refuse, to insist that she could handle everything on her own, but the truth was, she couldn't. She was drowning, and Elon was throwing her a lifeline. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to repay you." Elon shook his head. "You don't have to repay me. Just do your best. That's all anyone can ask for." As Clara left the office, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. She had been given a second chance, and now, she had the support she needed to make the most of it. But deep down, she knew the real work was just beginning. The days that followed Elon Musk's intervention were a turning point for Clara. With the help of the childcare service he had recommended, she was able to focus on her work without constantly worrying about Jake. The mentor assigned to her, a seasoned hotel executive named Margaret, provided invaluable guidance, helping Clara navigate the complexities of her new role. For the first time in years, Clara felt like she could breathe. She still worked hard, harder than ever, in fact, but the weight on her shoulders had lifted. She was no longer juggling everything alone, and it made all the difference. One evening, as she was preparing to leave work, Clara received a message from Elon's assistant. He wanted to meet with her the next morning. Her heart raced as she read the message. What could he want now? Had she done something wrong? The next day, Clara arrived at the executive office early, her nerves on edge. Elon was already there, sitting at his desk, with a stack of papers in front of him. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Clara," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "Thank you for coming. I've been keeping an eye on your progress, and I have to say, I'm impressed." Clara blinked, surprised. "Thank you, sir. I've been doing my best." Elon nodded, his gaze steady. "I can see that. And that's why I've made a decision. I want to offer you a new opportunity. One that will challenge you, but also give you the chance to grow even further." Clara's heart pounded as she waited for him to continue. "I'm opening a new hotel in New York," Elon explained. "It's a flagship property, and I need someone with your drive and determination to help lead the team. I want you to be the assistant manager." Clara's eyes widened in shock. "New York? But, that's so far away. I don't know if I can." Elon held up a hand, cutting her off. "I understand it's a big decision, and it won't be easy. But I believe you're ready for this. And I'm willing to make it worth your while. The position comes with a significant salary increase, relocation assistance, and a full-time nanny for Jake. You'll have the support you need to make this work." Clara's mind raced as she tried to process his words. Moving to New York would be a huge change, but it was also an incredible opportunity. She thought about Jake, about the life they could build in a new city. She thought about her dreams, about the future she had always wanted but never thought was possible. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice filled with emotion. Elon leaned forward, his expression serious. "You don't have to decide right now. Take some time to think about it. Talk to Jake. But know this, I wouldn't offer this to just anyone. I see something in you, Clara. Something special. Don't let fear hold you back." Clara nodded, her mind still reeling. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. I'll think about it." As she left the office, Clara felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it was also a huge leap into the unknown. That evening, she sat down with Jake and explained the situation. To her surprise, he was excited about the idea of moving to a new city. "New York sounds cool, Mom," he said, his eyes wide with wonder. "Can we see the Statue of Liberty?" Clara laughed, her heart swelling with love for her son. "Yes, sweetie. We can see the Statue of Liberty." As she tucked him into bed that night, Clara felt a sense of clarity. This was her chance to build a better life for herself and for Jake. It wouldn't be easy, but it was worth it. The next morning, she sent Elon a message accepting his offer. The weeks that followed Clara's decision to accept the assistant manager position in New York were a whirlwind of activity. There were endless details to sort out, packing up their home, arranging the move, and preparing for the new job. But for the first time in a long time, Clara felt a sense of excitement about the future. The relocation assistance provided by Elon's team made the process smoother than Clara had imagined. They helped her find a cozy apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood in Brooklyn, close to good schools and parks. The full-time nanny, a warm and experienced woman named Linda, quickly became a trusted part of their lives. Jake adored her, and Clara felt confident leaving him in her care while she focused on her new role. The flagship hotel in New York was unlike anything Clara had ever seen. It was a stunning blend of modern design and classic elegance, located in the heart of Manhattan. As she walked through the grand lobby on her first day, she felt a mix of awe and determination. This was her chance to prove herself on an even bigger stage, and she was ready to rise to the challenge. Her new role as assistant manager was demanding, but Clara thrived under the pressure. She worked closely with the hotel's general manager, a seasoned professional named Daniel, who quickly became a mentor and ally. Together, they tackled the challenges of opening a new property, from training staff to fine-tuning operations. Clara's days were long, but she made a point of spending quality time with Jake every evening. They explored their new city together, visiting Central Park, the Statue of Liberty, and the American Museum of Natural History. For the first time in years, Clara felt like she was truly present in her son's life, not just physically but emotionally. One evening, as they sat on a bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park, watching the sun set over the Manhattan skyline, Jake turned to her with a smile. "I like it here, Mom," he said. "It feels like a new start." Clara's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. "Me too, sweetie. Me too." As the weeks turned into months, Clara's confidence grew. She handled crises with calm professionalism, built strong relationships with her team, and earned the respect of her colleagues. She even started to think about her long-term goals, something she hadn't done in years. One day, as she was reviewing the hotel's financial reports, Daniel walked into her office with a smile. "Clara," he said, "I just got off the phone with Elon. He's impressed with your work, and so am I. We'd like to offer you the position of general manager at our next flagship property in Chicago." Clara's eyes widened in shock. "General manager? But I've only been here a few months." Daniel nodded. "You've more than proven yourself. You've got what it takes to lead, Clara. Don't sell yourself short." Clara felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. This was everything she had worked for, everything she had dreamed of. But it was also another big change, another leap into the unknown. That evening, she sat down with Jake to discuss the opportunity. To her surprise, he was just as excited as she was. "Chicago sounds fun, Mom," he said. "Can we try deep dish pizza?" Clara laughed, her heart full. "Yes, sweetie. We can try deep dish pizza." As she tucked him into bed that night, Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had come so far, and she knew that none of it would have been possible without the support of those who believed in her: Elon, Daniel, Margaret, Linda, and, most of all, Jake. The next morning, she accepted the offer. 2 years later, Clara stood in the lobby of the Chicago flagship hotel, now one of the most successful properties in Elon Musk's portfolio. The grand opening party was in full swing, with guests mingling under the glittering chandeliers and the sound of live music filling the air. Clara, now the general manager, moved through the crowd with ease, greeting guests and ensuring everything was running smoothly. She had come a long way from the overworked, stressed-out receptionist who had once embarrassed the owner of a hotel. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. She had faced challenges, made mistakes, and learned from them. She had grown not just as a professional, but as a person. As she stood at the edge of the room, watching the celebration unfold, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Elon Musk standing beside her, a rare smile on his face. "You've done an incredible job, Clara," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "This hotel is a testament to your hard work and dedication." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. Thank you, Mr. Musk. None of this would have been possible without your belief in me. Elon shook his head. I didn't do anything special. I just gave you a chance. You're the one who took it and ran with it. Clara's eyes filled with tears as she thought about everything she had overcome, the struggles, the doubts, the fear of failure. She had faced it all and come out stronger on the other side. I couldn't have done it without the support of so many people, she said. My son, my mentors, my team, and you. You saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Elon nodded, his expression thoughtful. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to believe in you. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. As the night went on, Clara found herself reflecting on her journey. She thought about the young single mother who had been struggling to make ends meet, the woman who had been given a second chance and had seized it with both hands. She thought about Jake, who was now thriving in his new school, and about the life they had built together. She realized that her story wasn't just about success or ambition. It was about resilience, about the power of kindness and second chances. It was about the importance of seeing the humanity in others and believing in their potential, even when they didn't believe in themselves. As the party wound down, Clara stepped outside onto the hotel's terrace, overlooking the city skyline. The lights of Chicago twinkled like stars, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything she had achieved and everyone who had helped her along the way. She thought about the lesson she had learned, that no matter how difficult life gets, there is always hope. That with hard work, determination, and a little bit of kindness, anything is possible. And as she stood there, watching the city she now called home, Clara knew that her journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more obstacles, and more opportunities. But she was ready for whatever came next. Because she had learned that the most important thing in life isn't where you start, it's where you're willing to go. The end.